If something happens and there's a kill zone, you've got to, don't take the brain of an Archbishop. You can't stay there immediately and face the rounds. It doesn't matter who you are. You've got to extract and move quickly, but there's some left, right, and right. But what you can't do is all run around like headless chickens. I remember coming up to a position and the vehicle's getting incoming, the vehicle's taking rounds.
Yeah.
So you're in this nice, secure metal shell, and rounds are hitting it, and then when we stop, you've got to get out of this. I looked at them guys either side of me, and they were all there. We had that much ammunition. We was always practicing. And it's a drill. So when things happen, and if you practice with live ammunition all the time, or scenarios where it's as close to realistic as you can be, when it happens, the drill just kicks in. It's automatic. You've got to have a sense of humour in life. Life's full of shocks and everything's even when you think you're doing well and something's going to come and just hit you like a head first, you know what I mean? And the person who can just laugh at yourself and have a sense of humour, and even in the darkest days, believe you me, in the most dangerous times I've been in, the most life-threatening occasions, you'd be surprised what a smile and a sense of humour thinking, oh, that's happened, how do we get out of that?
Okay, so back again with another episode of the podcast, and this is one I'm really excited about. As most of you will know, we're a motorsport engineering consultancy, so we work in teams with groups of people, and especially in things like endurance racing, where you might be racing for 24 hours straight, organisation and leadership and giving all the different elements of a team the resources they need to do an effective job is really important. So about 2 years ago, I became aware of the Special Forces and started to get quite interested in what that environment is in terms of leadership and just organising a group of people to complete a given task and how the best way to do that is. And I quickly realised that the Special Forces organisations such as the British SAS are really the most effective at doing that in the world. So I've been wanting to sit down with an SAS soldier to talk about the leadership and organisation in that environment. And today I'm here with Melvyn Downes, who is a retired SAS soldier.
Yeah.
And he's had a great career of leading men in the most challenging environments. So I'm excited to talk about Melvyn's career and some of the things that he's learned and how they might apply to motorsport. So nice to meet you, Melvyn. It's really good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, Jahir. My first ever podcast. I'm a podcast virgin, so to speak.
It's a really good opportunity to talk and we just have a conversation about it. So I guess the first thing to get into is where you're from. So a little bit about your background, where you grew up and that kind of thing.
Okay, my background, I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, which is in the Midlands, well, obviously God's country. And my background is basically, as you can see, mixed race. My father, he came from Jamaica in the original Windrush era in the mid-50s. And he met my mum, who's born and bred in Stoke-on-Trent. So obviously she was a white woman. They got together very early. They were both very young, something like 18. And unfortunately, my mother's side, and back in that day, because this is early 50s, they didn't see they didn't like it. So they kept my mother out, and my dad and my mum, they just had to make things work. And they did, and produced me and my brother.
I'm mixed race too. I don't think we talked about that before, but so I was born in 88. And even then, my parents had a lot of, we grew up just around the corner from here, actually. And, even things like spitting at my mum and all sorts of things like that. So I can only imagine what that was like in the 60s. Up north as well.
I was born in 1964, so you know what I mean? That's 24 years prior to you. And there was a massive difference then. Yeah. For instance, up north, I was in Stoke-on-Trent. I was actually born... I actually grew up in the largest council estate. And at the time, it was the largest council estate in Europe, not just Great Britain, in Europe. It was massive.
Wow.
And where I was originally born, we was living in a bedsit. And this was it was a place called in Shelton, in Cobridge. And back in that time, and even today, it's really multicultural. It's where a lot of the immigrants came over to. People from the Windrush era, from Pakistan, from India, and Irish. And they lived there. And because my mum and dad, they had nowhere to go. They actually lived in a bedsit with many other, there was all nationalities and races and so on. Believe it or not, I left that place and I was only 3 years old, and I can still remember parts of it.
Really?
It's amazing how small snippets of information you pick up from such a young age.
Yeah, smells can trigger it. And
precisely.
Like
And because it was such a multicultural mini society there, that's precisely it. I can remember the certain smells, all the different foods, different people, different outfits, and so on. And I told my mother this, and she couldn't believe it, because she was saying, wow, when you left there, you was 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
So we moved. Eventually we left there, and we got a council house in this large estate called Bentley, which was only something like 4 miles, if that, away from this other place. But you could have been literally the other side of the planet. It was totally different.
Yeah.
And this housing estate, as I said, it was largest in Europe. It was mainly white, working class, a lot of miners, and a lot of poor people and deprived. So when I grew up, by the time I got there, it was something like 1967 to 68. So it was in the 60s, and I can remember precisely moving into this flat, and then to this housing in this housing estate. And what I remember from that, it was really, really hostile. It was such an hostile environment back then,
right?
Because
you were different,
totally different. Yeah, I, for instance, in my school, when I started school, there was one other mixed race guy. There weren't any black kids, and then an Indian girl. And that was it. So we was totally, totally different.
Yeah.
And consequently, back in them days, people, there was a lot of racism going on. Like you said, you knew what it was like when you was in the 80s. Just imagine in the 60s and the early 70s. And it was really, really a difficult start, so to speak.
It's a tough time.
Yeah, it was a tough time. But what it did, it made me more resilient, and it made me the person who I am. And actually, all my friends, most of the people I grew up with, were actually white. So it just shows you there's good and bad everywhere. But like you said, I remember my mother getting spat at, my father getting spat at, the name calling, and, the constant bullying. But it just shows you in life, the only way to get over obstacles like that, adversity, is you've just got to face it dead on.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Cool. And so you mentioned school there. Earlier you said something about something on your first day, a memory on your first day of school.
Yeah, and it's funny really, because like I said, snippets of information just stay with you, especially from your childhood. Your childhood is who you are, isn't it? And how people have problems later on in life, a lot of it does stem from the childhood. But I remember my very first day at school. And I wasn't even 5. I was, my mother says I was like, just under the border or whatever. I was 4 still, nearly 5. And I can even remember what I was wearing, this yellow top with 2 bunny rabbits. My mum knitted it for me and everything. Wow. I'm going into school, and the school we went to, basically there was no uniforms in any of the schools I went to. Okay. It was just civilian clothes, nobody had uniforms. Yeah. And I always wanted to join the military. I was just fascinated with soldiers from such a young age, from literally 3 years old. I don't know. I was just always wanting to watch anything to do with military, maybe the uniforms or whatever. But I was always just, my mum said I was just always fascinated with soldiers, these toy soldiers and so on. But when I first went to school, you got these lockers, and in there you put stuff like your books and your training kit, your sports kit or whatever. And I remember these little lockers, what they had a picture of a soldier, and then they had trains, they had dollies and ships and so on. So the boys sort of got the boys type of things, like the train or the car, and the girls would get like the dollies and the push chairs and so on. And I just wanted the soldier. And I remember, and then they give it somebody else. I thought, okay. And then the teacher goes to me, and this is yours, Melvyn. And it was a It was a gollywog.
Oh,
And she was
no.
actually laughing. I didn't click at the time because I didn't even know I was mixed race, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I just remember looking at it and think, right, okay, that's me. And
Oh, man.
yeah, but that stays in my memory.
And she thought she was being funny.
Yeah, well, she was laughing. I don't know whether, it's not saying that she was president. She just might have thought, wow, okay, he will remember this. Because as I said, I was one of the only black kids in the school.
Yeah.
But I remember that day, yeah. And also sitting around and having stories read, at the time there were stories. It was Little Black Sambo, and he's an active storybook. And later on in life, I actually Googled it, thinking, what was I dreaming about this? And it's true, there was stories coming out about this little... Yeah. It was actually an Indian kid and getting chased by the tigers, but he always come better off in the end.
Okay.
But because of this, I just got called, and that was my name then,
Sambo?
Yeah, and stuff like that. But hey, that was all part of growing up. It's a total different era. But looking back on it now, if I tell my kids or anything, they look at me as if it was crazy, as if it was 100, and it seems like 100 years ago. But it's just what happened in my lifetime. But obviously, things moved on since then.
Yeah, I find that some of the experiences my dad tells me he had. Just as a black guy growing up in London, some of them I can see and identify in what I go through 30 years later or whatever. But yeah, a lot of it, it's like, wow, you really had to deal with that. So things do move, but sometimes not. It's a process, right?
Yeah, it's all a learning curve,
Yeah. So what were your early interests back in those times? Like school and teenage years. What you said, soldiers was something that got you, but how about sports and instruments?
Well, I was always sporty, academics. No, it was. I'm not blaming the school or anything, but it was one of them places where we just go into school, and if you was academically minded, they'd sort of take care of you, and if you wasn't that way, you just left to just do your own thing. And that was happening in most of the classes I was in. But all I was interested in really was sports and PE and getting out and about. And also history. I just loved history, and especially military history. It really fascinated me from a young age. And as I said, I just had this, I always wanted to go in the military, and I just really enjoyed anything to do with military. So consequently, I joined the Army Cadets at 11 years old. I mean, you don't even get a uniform until you were 13. But I used to parade in my jeans and this Wrangler top and be so proud and everything. And when I got this uniform at 13, that was me.
Yeah, over the moon.
Yeah, over the moon. It was something.
You were already a soldier at that point.
Yeah, because to me, it was something totally different than school.
Yeah.
Academics, I just couldn't get into it. I didn't... Geography and geology, what does it mean, and science and all this. I just wasn't into any of that.
Yeah.
But out and about, anything to do with doing survival, to me, there was a point to it. Doing navigation, doing first aid, anything, to me, this made sense. But school, no, I just wasn't that way inclined.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I can already see how it made sense that you got into the military. But yeah, what you're saying about, it just made sense. The practical, the outdoors stuff made sense. I think that's a big problem in schools. And it was my thing as well. Like when I was at school, I didn't really engage with anything. And a lot of it was because I didn't have anything to tie it to the real world. You can teach me maths, you can teach me like long division and we can do like experiments in science and put two chemicals together. But like, what does that actually mean outside of the classroom? I think that's what school really has a trouble in bridging, and why a lot of people don't really engage with the subjects and the material. It wasn't until obviously engineering is quite heavily maths and physics, but it wasn't until I started to realize that I see maths as the language of the universe. Like you can describe anything with maths. So like this room, sound, light, like everything can be described with maths. And once I started to realize that, is when it started to make sense a bit. So that's interesting. And you said you like sports. Did you have a favourite?
Well, I used to enjoy everything really, any type of sport, athletics, and for instance, I was captain of the cricket team, captain of my school rugby team one my year.
Okay.
I enjoyed football, even though I've got 2 left feet, but I was in the team because I'd just run around like a madman.
Yeah.
And cross country, anything to do with sport. And I think what it was that competition.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very competitive.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would always want to prove that I can be better than people.
Yeah.
Or, you know, nobody's better than me. Or, you know, that's something what I was good at.
Yeah.
So I excelled at all types of sports.
Okay. And you mentioned boxing.
Yeah.
You got into boxing.
I actually, what got me really into boxing was growing up, we used to have a small black and white TV.
Okay.
And it was the time when Muhammad Ali and Cassius Clay, and he was coming about, and my dad used to get the TV and get the aerial all right, and we used to just let us stay up and watch these fights.
Okay.
And to me, it was so inspiring. It was somebody who looks like me.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody loved
representation.
him. And I enjoyed all that. And my dad used to then, you know, get me boxing and love. It was because I was bullied from a young age. He told me to look after myself and basically started teaching me box. Even though he wanted to box for himself, but he had to look after himself.
Yeah.
So, you know, doing pads and that on his hands. But I never actually started boxing. There was no boxing clubs where I was at that time.
Okay.
That's why I was just into the other sports. It was only once I got into the military that I started boxing. And it was like a novice grade.
Okay. And so what was the start of your military career?
My starting of my military career, as soon as I left the Army Cadets, so basically I had 5 years in the Army Cadets till I was 16.
Okay.
And then all I was interested in was going straight in the Army. Some of the teachers were saying, "What are you going to do, Downes? What you're going to go nowhere." I'm going to go in the Army. I was telling them I'm going to go in the Army.
Okay.
And anyway, 2 weeks after leaving school, 16 years old, I was in the Army. But back then, I think the same now, when you're 16, you have to have your parents' permission,
Okay.
you know, to sign it. So my father, he was all for it, but my mum, she was, you could tell she was a bit against it. But at the end, they knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So as I said, 2 weeks after leaving school, 16 years old, I found myself in the British Army. But when you join at 16, you're classed as a junior soldier. So you can't go on military operations. And basically what it is as an adult, you'll do 18 weeks basic training. But as a junior, as a boy soldier, 16, you do 1 year basic training.
Okay.
But also, because I was quite good at leadership, they put me into an infantry juniors leaders battalion, because there's junior soldiers battalions and junior leaders battalions. So I was in an infantry junior leaders battalion, basically, and it's where there's all units of the British infantry, because that's what I joined. So you had every regiment from guards, paratroopers, light infantry, Scottish regiments, Welsh regiments. They had everybody. So you met people from all around the country.
Right.
So that was unusual, because I've never really met a Scottish person properly before, or a Welsh person, and so on.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. And I excelled there, because you actually got promoted as well up until
as a junior.
So you get a lance corporal, sergeant, and then the highest rank you could get was sergeant major. And I got the sergeant major, so you was in charge of your company. So they give you command structures as well, and responsibility. And not only did you learn, because you're doing it for 1 year, not only did you learn your normal military training, but there was a big emphasis on leadership as well, which was great, because I already had the benefits of being in the Army Cadets before, so I already knew how to do drill, how to march, and some weapon handling, and how to shoot, and so I was at an head start, and that's what I excelled in that.
So it was like a perfect environment for you.
Oh yeah, it was, and I just thrived on it, and I just couldn't wait to, once we passed out, is then go to my parent unit.
Okay. And what was that, your parent unit?
My parent unit was the 1st Battalion Staffordshire Regiment, which nowadays it's amalgamated into the Mercian Regiment, which was basically it was what's known as a county regiment. So people from around your area would join this. So the Staffordshire Regiment, it was mainly made up of people from Stoke-on-Trent, Birmingham, Walsall, Wolverhampton, the Black Country.
Yeah.
But you had the odd people coming from all around the country, but it was mainly people you know. So, for instance, along my street, there was two guys who were a couple of years above me, and they were not only were they in the same battalion when I got there, they was in the same company. So you know people, and you mostly support the same team and so on. So they were like, in the First World War, they'd be called PALS regiments, where they put people together so they work more as a team and so on. So that's what it was like. And so you have different units. Like you'd have the Cheshire Regiment, and that'd be everybody from around, the Cheshire area, and as far as Liverpool and so on.
Okay.
And so it was an infantry regiment, but a county regiment.
Okay. And so from the time you joined then, and from the time, I guess, leading up to the decision you had to go into the SAS, what were you mainly doing in that period?
Yeah.
You were in Northern Ireland, right?
Yeah. So I basically joined my unit. Now I was 17 and it was stationed in Gibraltar. So that was my first posting. So that, oh God, I'm on an holiday posting. It was brilliant. Yeah, it was a fantastic posting. So they were there for 2 years and I had a year left. They had a year left there. So that was my first year in the military. And it was fantastic. It really was. And then after that, we moved to Colchester, a big garrison town. And then from there, we went to Northern Ireland as well. And you do stints. So you go to Northern Ireland my first tour was in 1984, and it was in South Armagh. So I went on this tour as a young private, but in what was known as a close observation platoon. And basically, it was quite a stressful job because they have the best of the best within the battalion. Because I was already thriving as soon as I got to my unit. They saw potential in me, so I was straight away on the Lance Corporal's course, and then they sent me to the close observation platoon for this Northern Ireland trip. And what your job was to live in OP's observation post and watch likely terrorist houses or terrorist movement, or watch, because it was on the border, watching border activities. Okay. So you're just working in a small team of a 4-man, elite group. And it was really, really strenuous because what we would be doing, it would be up to 10 days and nights living in just a bush, hiding.
Right. What, just
watching, not moving. Essentially.
Oh,
Serious. When I say a bush, I mean a small area, tiny. You move in there over night time. Yeah. You use chicken wire and camouflage nets, and you stay in this edge row where it is, and you live in there. And you do everything in there, and that includes, you eat, sleep, and go to the toilet in there. But what you are all the time, you're on pins, you're on edge all the time because you were watching a terrorist, usually a terrorist house or something like this, and you're reporting on all the information. Okay. And obviously you've got to have somebody on sentry duty because at the time, the IRA were working, especially around the border, in groups of 12. 12 men. They used to be called ASUs, active service units, and they would just come across the border and they patrol that area. Okay. So we was only a 4-man patrol.
So they found you.
Yeah, they found us. Yeah, we got quick. You can call the emergency backup and everything, but it could be a while before you get there. So it was actually a quite dangerous job. But what got me really interested into the SAS was part of that job is if something was going to go down properly and you were watching, reporting, they would move you out and this bunch of other people would come in looking like Mexican bandits, with big mustaches and everything. And if they think something's going down, you will move out and they would take over from you and they would sort of get the goodies.
So they get the fun part.
Yeah, they get the fun part. Or if it was a really serious job, they might just go in from the beginning. Okay. So really,
right. So that was where the action was at. That's where the exciting stuff was at.
Yeah.
So what do you think the main things you took away from, like how did you find that constant sense of, something might happen, something very serious might happen, we might get seen. anything. How do you cope with that?
Well, it was very difficult because at this stage, I joined that platoon. It was like the reconnaissance platoon or the close observation platoon. I was actually 18, and then I had my 19th birthday. I was in Ireland, very, very young on this job.
Yeah, a boy still, right?
Yeah, and most of the people in there were senior. They were a lot older. So it was very difficult, to tell you the truth, because, as I said, it's always that you never really relaxed. So when you was in these observation posts, if you got compromised, then you'd have to move out. But sometimes, it's 10 days and nights. You were just sitting there and constantly worrying about if anything could happen. You're watching, but by all the information you've been given that if it went wrong, it could go very wrong. For instance, one time we was in Newry, and we actually inserted into buildings. So we was in a building,
so you were next
4
door
of us, and we was next door to terrorists. And I remember the bloke's name. I won't say it on task, but basically we was watching the QM, which is a quartermaster. He's in charge of weapons and stuff like that, distribution. He was only a young lad.
Yeah.
And we was watching from a building. We inserted secretly, and that's a long story how that happened. But we got into this building, and next door was a terrorist, and every other house was a derelict. But it was just there was lots of terrorists on this estate, and we was watching a terrorist just across the road. But there was 2 of us in the front room, and then the other 2 guys were in the rear room. And I never saw the other 2 guys for 10 days and nights. I literally was going from a sleeping bag to sitting on a Bergen on my pack and doing 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Like my commander was a sergeant. He'd be sitting on the pack just looking through. They had like they had all Wrigley tin metal on the window. And there was a small hole. And that's where we had an aperture, and we was taking photographs, watching the terrorist house. And anybody who went to his house, a milkman would come, you'd write and log it. So 24/7, you were watching this. So I would just get out of his sleeping bag. We just had the one sleeping bag. And then we'd swap over 4 hours on, 4 hours off, 4 hours on, 4 hours off for 10 days and nights. So whenever you went toilet, it was just in cling film. And then you'd wrap it up. Me being the new boy, I'd have the quality job of putting that in a black bag and carrying everything out. So my pack was even heavier sometimes than when I went in. And then you'd actually, go for a wee, do your uri in a big plastic gallon bottle. And it was horrible because you put
well, the others
where everybody else has gone, well, my commander. And then at night time, he just tipped this out down the drain, but there was nowhere there was no toilets or anything you could use there.
Yeah, right.
So you'd have to carry everything back out with you. And I remember just mind-numbingly boring, but you were always on edge, just watching everything, and then putting stuff like a boiled sweet in my mouth, and just timing how long it was before it just melted, just to take the time away.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So it was one of them periods in my life what I'll always remember. But it made me it made me patient, that's for sure.
What do you think you learned from it?
Like I said, I learned how to be patient.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about myself, to tell you the truth, and because you had lots of time thinking. So, I just, in one way, it gave me a lot of stress as well. Because once I come from there, my mind is,
You had trouble unwinding?
I had a bit of trouble unwinding, really did.
What, from the stress?
Yeah, from the stress of it and everything. Because it's...
So then you find yourself back home?
Yeah, well...
In a safe environment, but your mind's still at alert level 10?
Oh, yeah, in Northern Ireland. And that was my first taste of actually realising this is for real, because one time we was on a patrol and my company had just left, which was B Company. They were my best mates, and I just went to this platoon just for the 6-month tour, and then I was going back to my original group of lads. And we went to this place called Crossmaglen where these lads were, and we just had, we had a brew and that with them. Then we was going out on our patrol to see the area where we're going to, on the border, where we're going to put up another observation post.
Okay.
While we was out there, the lads from my old platoon, they went out on a patrol, and we was about, say, 600 meters away, and I remember a bomb going off, and so we got on the report that there's been a contact, there's been blokes, well, seriously injured and killed. And then, because we was right on the border, and we heard and saw the smoke, and then we was getting all the information, the four of us, about what's been going on, what's happening. We was waiting for the terrorists, whoever did it, to come across the border, come our way, and that's what I was hoping for.
Right.
And because I was also a machine gunner, so I was lying behind a machine gun, just hoping that these terrorists, who's ever done this, you'll get revenge. But unfortunately, that we got all the information over the radio, and then about somebody's been killed, and I remember thinking, I hope it's not one of my best mates from there, and who is it? Because I knew everybody. These were my mates.
Yeah.
And then when he said the name, it was a lad named Steve Anderson, and he took me under his wing when I first come. He was a company clerk, but unfortunately he stood on a pressure plate and decapitated him. Yeah, blew him off. So, it's thinking stuff like that when you're 19. And we had other incidents as well. And you don't, then it starts really hitting home. And then when you go on your next patrol, you patrol in certain areas, even though we were lying in bushes and all the rest of it, but we had to still go out on patrol in the daytime to find, walk past where we imagine we're going to be going in at the night time and so on. So when you go on patrol, you're just waiting. It's the anticipation of something happening and over there, because at the time, this area was called Bandit Country, South Armagh. You couldn't move around even in vehicles. It was all helicopter bouncing from one place to another.
Right. What,
and then you get out. Yeah, they'd have IEDs over the place. So, yeah, this is way back then. And this is what makes the British Army, what made us so much more advanced in fighting insurgency later on, because we already had a lot of experience from Northern Ireland. Anyway, that was my first tour of duty. So I come back from that, and I was quite stressed, actually. One of the most stressed I've been in. It took a lot to unwind.
So how did that manifest? Like, how did that affect your behaviour and things like that?
Well, the first way, it just, soldiers are bingers. And over there, when you was in Ireland, you couldn't drink. Okay. So when you come back, we just had the drink. And as I said, I had good friends who just lived across the road from us as well.
Yeah, okay.
And, we was in the same group, and we just went out, and we had, I think it was about 3.5 weeks off, 4 weeks off. So you just go crazy. Yeah. And I mean, it was just drink. And my mother said, "What's wrong with you? You've just totally changed,
Really?
And I didn't realise what it was. It was only then one time I was back home, and it's one of the only times I broke down overnight. I just started crying. My mum, "What's wrong?" And I just told her about this, what happened to my mate, and I just really confused. And she goes, "Right, you're going to have to go to the doctors." I didn't never really told many people there. So then I went to the doctors, and he just says, "Oh, stop drinking and crack on." And that's what I did. Yeah. But it was really weird, because I remember getting on a bus and trying to pay, this is when it's home, trying to give the correct change. And the bus conductor's like saying, "Okay, give me said the money," and I just couldn't count it. I just hit the stage, really? And I just felt really, really weird. And I hadn't had a drink by this time. I was just going out, and it just really affected me.
Okay.
But then I just got over it, and that was sort of something else what made me resilient. That was my first taste of reality, what life's like being a soldier. And don't forget, this time being a soldier, this was 1984. I remember there was guard units out there.
Yeah.
And me being mixed race, I couldn't even join that unit, even though really they said you could from 1968. No black person joined the guards until I think it was 1989 or 86. I think it was 89, because I know the guy who was the officer, the first ever black guy go in the guards regiment. Because it just wasn't heard of in them days. So I was basically fighting for the British Army or working in the British Army. Yet there were certain units I couldn't go in, and at the time, even Scottish regiments, you don't find a black person in the Scottish regiment or in the Welsh regiments. It was different back then. But guards, no.
Why? What did the guards do? Was that
the guards are the guys that you saw outside Buckingham Palace? And if you think back in the day, you never saw a black face on any of this. And yet I was in the British Army, but I couldn't join certain units.
How did that feel? Because there you are ready to risk your life for that organisation, and they've certain parts of it are taking that attitude towards you.
Yeah. Well, I love the army, and I love my unit, and I to me it was the best career that anybody could have, and I'd recommend it to anyone. But what we used to get some prejudice from the guards. They used to, at the time, not anymore, obviously, but at the time, because there weren't any black guys in their unit, they'd see me, and then I'd get some verbal abuse from them now and again, and in my unit, because we're from the Midlands, there was a few black guys in there and mixed race guys. When I say a few, out of about 800, say there was about 20. That was a lot, believe you me.
Yeah.
And then other units, because there was no black guys. For instance, later on when we boxed like the guards and people like that, we'd have an 800 or 1,000 people from our unit supporting you. They all know you.
Okay.
And they have the guards regiment and they'd all know their boxers.
Okay.
But when any of the black boxers come in from our ring, we'd get the monkey chants and everything. It was. But all that did is made me more resilient.
Yeah.
Right. I ain't going down for anyone. Yeah, but this is, again, it's all life. It's life experience. It's a total different time, different era. The army's not like that now.
Yeah.
But that's how it was. So what also used to get me is when I used to be, sometimes you'd be doing these VCPs and roadblocks in Northern Ireland, and they'd stop me and they'd say, "Why are you here? You British soldiers." They're saying that to every soldier. They didn't want him there. But me in particular, they're saying, "What are you doing in this country? Your country doesn't want you." This is now early 80s when there was all the riots going on.
Okay.
You were treated as not well, and us, it was mainly the Catholics. They were saying, "Well, they don't like you in your country. Why are you fighting for them? Why are you over here?" And I just, I'm just doing my job. I'm a soldier. This is my job.
Yeah.
So, I never really talked about it, but I used to think about it sometimes. And, then when you got back home in the 80s, there was always lots of fighting. There was times when the National Front used to be marching round Stoke-on-Trent, and that really used to get to me because I love my country. I love the Union Jack. That's my country. That's my flag. But back in that day, that flag was carried around, by the far right. These beer drinking, pot ballad football hooligans who, they like to have a fight when they've had a lot of drink.
Yeah.
And there's more of them against the bullies.
Yeah.
But if they really wanted to have a fight, why didn't they put on a uniform and get disciplined and join the military,
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I didn't like. And that's why I always used to wear my flag. I'm proud to be British. And I wouldn't let groups like the far right take it away from me. Yeah, discourage me. Anyway, so I just learned from all these experiences. So that was my first experience in Northern Ireland. I went as a private, but later on, I also went to Northern Ireland as a corporal. So this time, you've got command, you've got leadership. You've got 8 blokes you're in charge of. And then later on, I went again, but as a sergeant in charge of 30 guys. So, and each time was a different learning curve. You knew a bit more about the entire situation, whereas when you first go over there, you've got no idea what's going on.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, what am I doing here?
And so did you ever get into any combat situations during your time pre-SAS?
Yeah. I also went to the first Gulf War, which at the time, it was 1990-91. And I was a corporal in charge of an armoured fighting vehicle. Basically, there's 10 guys all told, including myself, in this vehicle. And we was the first infantry unit to go over to the Persian Gulf at the time. This is when, this is, as I said, 1990, the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I was going to join the SAS because, believe it or not, we had this officer come to our unit who was ex-SAS. And he did 2 years, and he come to our unit. He's one of the only a couple of guys who got in from my original unit. And he come to my group, and he was such an inspiration. He was a total different officer compared to what you normally see. Before you used to have officers just walking the dog and coming in, doing room inspections and basically all the formal stuff. This officer came and he was totally different. He wasn't bothered if your kit wasn't immaculate. He wasn't bothered about room inspections and so on. As long as you was fit and you could do the job out in the field, that's what he wanted. And he was an inspiration.
So the important stuff mattered to him in your eyes.
Yeah.
Rather than the more frivolous.
Yeah. And I always wanted, I'm like, wow, this is what, and that's when I found out about the SAS as well. I'm like, wow, I want to join this. Yeah. Anyway, he left. And then I remember saying to a lad who went for the SAS Selection, because there was only 2 soldiers from our battalion who got into the SAS. Mm-hmm. One got in the 70s, I've never ever met. Mm-hmm. And I got in as a soldier, and there was one officer. So that, I was like so the officer was in, the soldier got in, and I was the 3rd ever guy get in from my unit all the time. Mm. So, but they had many people try. Lots of people went to the SAS from my unit, but nobody got in. And when they came back with horror stories. And I said to this one guy, I want to go for that. I was really young. I was only early 20s, about 20, yeah. And he goes, oh, you can't go for it. I goes, why is that? He goes, because you're black. I goes, what's that got to do with it? He goes, well, they work in Northern Ireland all the time, and you're undercover. You be in the bars being undercover, and because nobody knew anything about it. Right. I thought, oh, that makes sense. So I wouldn't have gone for the SAS until years later. This officer came back to my unit again, and this was in about 89. And he saw me. He went, Corporal Downes, because by this time I was a corporal. He goes, what? Have you ever thought about going for the SAS? I said, oh, I'd have loved to, sir, but I can't. And he goes, why not? And I told him the exact story. Yeah. And he just burst out laughing. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, of course you can. He goes, obviously you couldn't go sitting around in an Irish bar pretending, back in that day, pretending mixing as a local. Yeah. For one start, I didn't have ginger and freckles, but you know what I mean? He says you couldn't blend in like that, but you'd be on the reactive side. And there's a lot goes on what you don't know about around the world. Go for it. So that was it. My paperwork's in. I'm going for the SAS. But then the first Gulf War come up, and I had all my paperwork to go, and I thought, right, I have to withdraw this now because I'm not going to be war dodging. My boys are going to war. I want to be war with them. Okay. And they were my lads. So I went over to the first Gulf War, and we actually, I learned a lot about myself there then, because we were there for 5.5 months before the war started. Well, 5.5 months in total, because the war didn't last long. Yeah. But it was the build-up for it. We were just living out in the desert. So 10 of you living by the side of your armoured fighting vehicle, which is basically like a big tank, you know what I mean? But it carries a lot more people, but the gun isn't as big. Yeah. And you were just living there doing lots of exercise, lots of training, and training with the in Saudi Arabia, with the waiting for it to start with the American military, and always doing manoeuvres. But you're just living next to your armoured fighting vehicle. So you got to know your blokes really, really well. And so in 5.5 months, we never actually, well, when I say never, you go back to a tented camp. We went back 3 times, and each time was for 3 days in this tented camp. And that was so that's 9 days where you actually went to a tented camp where you could have a sit-down, proper meal, shower, and speak to your family, and back in them days, and have a sit down, even go to the toilet. But it was only on a makeup loo, but it was like a wooden loo. Whereas the rest of the time, he was just in the desert. But it really made your soldiering skills brilliant, and your administration, because 10 of you living in this small shell was a lot of admin. And then we never actually thought the war would start. But then when it did start, it really did start. Like my unit was involved in the first armoured infantry attack since the Second World War. It was bonkers. Okay. You were watching like tanks engaging with other tanks who were just their tanks were dug in, and they'd been shelled and they'd been bombarded that much. You would have thought nothing would be left of any of the positions, but there was the positions what had never been touched, and most of the Iraqi positions wanted to surrender, but we did actually hit positions where they put up a fight, and then that was the first full-on combat type experience I'd seen, because unfortunately in my company, say of about 70 guys who all worked together, we lost 2 guys just as it started. And then one guy from Stoke, I watched it happen in front of me. He debuzzed out of his vehicle, and these Iraqis were just firing at him. I mean, they were trying to surrender. They debuzzed, and then they started firing at him, and they fired an RPG shell, which is a rocket grenade shell. I mean, launcher. And the actual missile bounced off the sand and then went, and it actually hit the guy in the chest, so he killed him outright and hit the vehicle. And then, luckily, it didn't explode in the vehicle. It went through the guy and then just went up in the air and exploded in the air. But it was just bizarre because this was about 50 meters away from us. We, saw it all happen. But
and you're not you're in danger still at that point too.
Oh
right?
yeah, we was in action then as well because I was the commander, and it's literally. You're coming up to an enemy position, and you're getting talked in, and I was up in the turret, and then I come down, and you could see what was going on. Then you was talking in onto your position, and my job, we was told as commanders, you needed to be at the rear of the vehicle. So when them doors open, you can make sure you push them blokes out if anybody won't get out the vehicle. But what I actually said to my guys, I said, no, I'm at the very front, and I'll debuzz out. But all of you better follow me, because if you don't follow me, anybody stay in that vehicle, I'll come back and I'll shoot you. And I most probably would have done. You know what I mean? So it was putting fear up him, but the main thing was they respected him enough that they did it. So I remember coming up to a position and the vehicle's getting incoming, the vehicle's taking rounds.
Yeah.
So you're in this nice, secure metal shell and rounds are hitting it. And then when we stop, you've got to get out of this. And then debuzz and face what's in front of you.
That's pretty intimidating, right?
It's very intimidating. But because you've got command, you're in a command position.
You got to show up.
You don't really think so much of yourself. You're just thinking of your blokes. So once you got out, and that was one of the most, how can I say, one of the best times I've ever felt, because I looked at them guys either side of me, and they were all there.
Yeah,
and it made me really proud.
Yeah,
and then we moved and got into our positions and did advanced and did what you did.
Okay,
but yeah, so that was my first time of seeing real combat, and then it was a fast war. It was over like flash to bang in a few days, but it was really intense. And then we stopped when we got the order to stop. We was actually on the Basra Road, literally on it.
Okay.
And we was told to stop. And we didn't know what was going on. We thought we was moving to the next position and the next position, because it was just like 4 days and nights with no sleep. And it was just really weird because all the oil fields were burning, and the even in the daytime it was black and the smoke.
Really?
And it was just weird. It was just like you felt like you was in sort of type of movie, But then when we stopped on this road, the Basra Road, this is a 6-lane highway going all the way from Kuwait, all the way up into, through Basra, up to Baghdad, It's the main highway. And what happened was the Iraqis, they tried to flee. And they were moving up the sideway, coming out of Kuwait, and they were up the road.
Running into you.
Yeah, so while running into the Air Force, they were going up and down the road just bombing all the convoys, killing, blowing everything up, and all the tanks were off the road going up the sides. And so when we stopped on this road, it was just like a scene from an horror movie, because there was all just burnt out vehicles, still burning and everything, and lots of vehicles had been hit, but they weren't on fire, or they weren't completely destroyed. It was just all bodies everywhere, and there was obviously some civilian bodies, but they actually had a lot of Iraqis in civilian cars. And I remember going to this car, and in the back of it was just all baby clothes. They just robbed everything from Kuwait, and they were just trying to get out of the place. And we actually was told to stay there, and we just had to wait. And because there was all mines all over the place, and what had been dropped from the air from the coalition forces, by the way, so there was all anti-personnel mines and so on. We were just told to stay firm and basically don't move, just stay around your vehicle. Me being a corporal in charge, and you go walking around and checking the area, but it was like a scene from hell. And it took about 3 days and nights before the engineers come up and then started moving all the bodies and moving everything away, but you just
Sounds
wild.
intense.
Yeah.
So 2 questions that I had there is, so you were in a gunfight.
In the gunfight,
Yeah.
well, in the battle, yeah.
Yeah, and how do you keep calm and focused on what you're doing in that situation? Because so I've never been near a gun that's gone off. I've never had bullets fly past me. So, but I have been in situations which, like as kids, fighting other kids and situations where you're worried that you might get hurt in some way. But that is elevated way above when you're talking about bullets flying past you. How do you cope with that?
Well, I'll tell you how you cope with it. Personally, especially if you've got leadership, you're thinking of your men. You aren't thinking of yourself.
Okay.
So that's one way I cope with it. But the main way you cope with it is the drills you do, the training you do prior to going on a job.
Okay.
And because we had 5.5 months building up to this, or months and months building up to it, we was drilling. We had that much ammunition. We was always practicing. And it's a drill. So when things happen, and if you practice with live ammunition all the time, or scenarios where it's as close to realistic as you can be, you find live ammunition really close to each other. There's hardly any safety aspects to it. And if you train for real, then when it happens, the drill just kicks in. It's automatic,
Right.
So
you know what to do.
Yeah, you know what to do. You don't really think about it until afterwards. You haven't got time to think about being scared. You just know the drill. So if all else fails, you just go revert to drill mode, what your job is, and so on.
Okay. All right. I've got some more questions to that, but we'll get on to that later. And you said also that you were up for 4 hours straight, 4 days straight, no sleep.
Oh, yeah. It'd be catnapping. You never, for them 4 days and nights, it was just intense. It was just always on the move, and then you'd be coming up to these in an Iraqi position. You get orders that you're going to attack this position. You get there, and there'd be nothing left, just body parts or people just wanting to surrender. And you're like, whoa. And then you've heard on the radio that a company, they've had an attack, pardon me, and people, friends who've been injured and so on. And you're like, wow, they've been into proper action. When's our turn? And then you come up to another position, and again, there'll be just all nothing left. So it got like this for our company. But then after a couple of days, we went to this position. We was thinking, there's not going to be anything left. But when we got there, it hadn't been touched.
Okay.
But it was a bit weird because there was something like it was like a battalion. We thought it was going to be a company's with, say, I don't know, about 70 people. But it was a battalion.
Which is how many?
That was about 600, 700. Lots of people coming out of these trenches, and they hadn't been touched, but they were surrendering them. But what happened was, back in that day, the Americans dropped leaflets over the Iraqi positions saying, in English and in Arabic, basically saying, come with your weapon pointing down, and they actually had drawings of them, with the weapons pointing down to the ground, your arms in the air, and that'll be you. We'll take you as prisoner. Okay. So what happened with us, we saw this position, and then there was the odd round going off here and there, but we saw the position from, say, 600 metres away, and there was lots and lots of people coming out. And I remember our officer passing it back to our major, saying, like, okay, there's lots of people wanting to surrender, lots of soldiers. And then we was told, have they got weapons? And we're like, yeah, they're all carrying the weapons. Yeah. Because, it's obviously smoke and all bits and bobs, and they were coming from a far away. Yeah. And we was told then to fire the rod and chain gun, and the rod and cannon, and the chain gun from the warriors above their heads so that they put down the weapons. So we started, the gunners started firing ammunition above their heads.
But they thought they were being attacked.
But they thought they were being attacked, which you would do. Yeah. So a lot of the guys then came running forward, wanting to surrender, but then others got down and got in positions, and we started getting incoming fire. Okay. So then we was told, right, we passed on the message, we're getting incoming fire, that there's bullets hitting all the vehicles.
And there's a lot of them.
And there was an awful lot of them. So then we was told, right, okay, 9 platoon from the right, 7 platoon left, and then we moved, and another platoon was in the rear. And then we had to move forward and then actually attack the position. get on the positions and attack the positions. But at the same time, there was people wanting surrender as well, running and surrendering. So it was really confusing,
Yeah.
because there was small pockets what were putting up a fight, and in between their pockets there was other people who were wanting surrender. So so you were collecting prisoners, and then you was also moving and attacking objectives.
Sounds chaotic.
It was chaotic, yeah. It was chaotic, but you can train as much as you want for war, and as I say, you get these drills and you practice and practice. So you do it into a drill, but everything changes. The plan completely changes. It's not happening like you think it would happen if you. Know what I mean?
That's what I mean. Like in boxing, for example, there's a saying. It's like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Oh yeah.
And so you have these drills and things, and if we're getting fired at, this is where we need to go and what we need to do. But then what if something unexpected happens?
Yeah.
And you can't do the drills.
Yeah.
Then what do you rely on?
Well, that's when you rely on flexibility, and that's a big part of being a soldier and mission command, where basically you get told what to do but not how to do it. And the great thing with mission command is junior commanders, especially in the British Army, you get given the authority to use your initiative on the ground. So you adapt and overcome whatever the situation is. But it's the same like boxing. When you just mentioned boxing, you made me think of something. When I started boxing, I thought nobody could touch me when I first was in my unit. I was boxing into companies and you're winning everyone. And because I was always I looked after myself. I had to. I was fighting from such a young age that I thought nobody could touch me. But one of the best lessons I learned, and this is where you do learn from failure, was actually one day I got hit that hard and I was like, wow, my lights are going to go out here. But I was that stubborn. I carried on fighting, then I got hit again and the referee stopped it. Okay. Now, I could have packed in all boxing whatsoever, but I actually improved from then. I ended up being the team captain and we won the Army Championships and so on. Because from that failure, well, I was upset for a day, but then afterwards I was training harder and better. And what that failure did, it gave me an experience, because there was plenty of times after that where I got it, and you're seeing that the lights, and you can smell like the blood and that sense of wow, I'm not with it now. I'm going dizzy. Yeah. But because I'd learned what that was, whereas instead of trying to fight through it, this time I knew, right, I've got to hold on.
You were comfortable.
Got to clear my head, I've got to keep him off. Or I've got to spit my gum shield out, the referee will stop it, wipe it, and that'll give me a few seconds. Yeah. So it gave me so much more experience than having failure. And that's why, no matter what, I will try at anything and I put 100%. Like I always say, it's better to try and fail than fail to try it. And that's been my ethos through life.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so let's get into more of that then. So the SAS. So I think I remember you saying, you did say that you applied, but then your guys went to the Gulf, so you withdrew. Yeah. But soon enough, you found yourself there, right?
Well, what happened was, I came back from the Gulf in 91. Then I wanted to go straight to the SAS, but my unit put me straight on my sergeant's course.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'll get the sergeant's course in. That's going to give me more experience. So I went on my sergeant's course, passed out with flying colours, and they made me up to my sergeant. Then I was going to go to the SAS, but then we had an emergency Northern Ireland tour. So I'm like, wow, now I've been Northern Ireland as a private, I've been as a corporal, now I'm going as a sergeant. I'm in charge of 30 guys with a young platoon commander, but we split the platoon up in half. So we'd have his off for 6 months, I would have my off for 6 months. So it's a big responsibility. I thought, I can't leave them. Again, it's going to be war dodging. So I thought, right, I'll get this island tour done, which I did, and then I'll apply for the SAS. So it was a couple of years later. By the time I got to the SAS, it was the end of 93, January 94, when I actually eventually went for it.
So you're about how old then?
Then I was...
About 30?
No, just 29.
Okay.
Yeah, 29. I was 29 in December and went for it in the January, yeah.
Okay.
So it was a winter course.
All right. So there's a selection process, right? Probably a lot of our listeners won't know about that. But to get into the SAS, you need to go through a selection course. How did you find that process?
Well, selection, it's the toughest. It is the most physically and mentally demanding course you could ever do in the world. It really is. Because selection, it's designed to push you to your physical breaking points, where there's nothing left in you.
Yeah.
They try to push you that much, but not break you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people have been broken. People do get injured, and unfortunately, people have died attempting selection. That's part and parcel of it.
Yeah.
So they push you to your physical limits. Now that, even though it's extremely difficult, it's doable. What's the most intense, me personally, what I found, and I think a lot of ex-SAS guys and SAS guys do, is the mental limits, because that's something you can't train for. They
Right.
push you to your mental limits,
Yeah.
your psychological limits. And again, they won't push you that much, but not break you. Because if they break your mind, it's very difficult to fix. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
So you have to sign, obviously, disclosure and with a psychiatrist that you can never go back and sue the army, because they've got to get it just right. Because if they get you too far over the edge, then that could later on send people bad, couldn't it? You know what I mean? But so they push you to your physical limits and your mental limits, your psychological limits. But they have to, because that's part of the job.
Yeah.
Because they need to see how far you can go. They need people that they can rely on, because part of our job is obviously behind enemy lines. And we've got an high chance of being captured.
Mm-hmm.
So that you have got to withstand sorts of psychological treatment. You've got to be able to work not just under physical pressure, but under mental pressure, and know what to do. And there's certain drills, what we've got to, and procedures, what I can't talk about, obviously, in detail because of disclosure.
Yeah.
But you have to learn and be ready to do. And they can only train you up to a certain point, psychologically and physically. But the selection, it's extremely, it's very tough. It's the toughest selection in the world. And I'm not just saying that because it was SAS, it is. Many countries have tried mirror it. Delta Force have tried mirror it. Lots of countries, the Americans, lots of countries have tried mirror it. Nobody can do it exactly the same. They can't. Do you want me to tell you why?
Go on.
Because they haven't got that British mentality. I'm telling you, this council, no, serious. It's a council estate, never give up type of kid who's in the SAS. 90% of them are from council housing estates. The kids who, and a lot of blokes have had quite an odd life. They've had odd knocks, and they've pushed it, and you can't. I don't know. You just can't find that character anywhere else. You can't replicate it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the British mentality around the world, where some parts of it is not very good, is it? With the football and the drinking culture, but it's just that culture you've got within these council estates.
Yeah.
And the kids who get out of that and push themselves beyond it, and nothing can break them. And it's that type of mentality.
Yeah, and then so therefore this is an organisation with really unique individuals, that they've proved, they've demonstrated what they are and what their limits are, and they've all ended up in this one group of people. So it's kind of like you can be sure that the people who are in the SAS are really cut from a pretty unique cloth.
Yeah, from a mega high standard, because if you think of it, even before going on SAS Selection, you have to do a couple of days in area fed just to check that you are ready for it, that you're fit enough for it, that you have to pass it and test then, so they know that you're at least capable. Because in the past, there are people taking up positions who just wanted to say, right, I've gone on SAS Selection. Because if you come back to your unit, you're still seen as, what a super soldier, he went for SAS Selection, you know what I mean?
Really?
And they don't want any of that, because that's taking a space. So, for instance, on my course, there was over 200, and actual SAS soldiers, there was only 6 of us passed, and then 4 SBS.
Wow.
So there's like 10. So that's what that was a 5% pass rate.
Yeah.
Now, If say 30 people passed, they'd accept 30.
Yeah.
If nobody passed, they'd have no one.
Yeah.
Because they don't let the standards go down. The standards have all changed since David Stirling started the SAS in the 40s. And even though society changes and life gets easier, SAS standards haven't changed.
Yeah. So you've passed selection. You're into the SAS. What are your first memories of, or if your first realizations that this is a really high performance environment?
My first realization was, that's over. That 6 month nightmare is over. First of
Really?
all, but it's nothing like what people. There's no parade. There's nothing. I swear, it's a case of right. Downes, here's your berry. Chuck your berry across to you. You are going to D Squadron 18 Troop. Okay, such and such, and these guys go there. You guys go there, and when we did it, we was outside the clock tower, and it's famous in Hereford. Basically, it's called beating the clock. If you on the clock tower, basically they've got all the names of people who have died while serving in the SAS. Most of them on operations or in training.
Yeah.
So if you die while serving, that you get your name on that clock.
Yeah.
And I think there's hardly a year where there haven't been names on that clock. And you know, unfortunately now I know an awful lot of them names. But I remember the officer saying, right, and whatever you do, lads, beat the clock. And I didn't know what's beating the clock. And it's basically don't get your name on that clock tower.
Yeah.
And he said, enjoy, it'll be over in a flash. And I remember thinking, wow, I've got 12 years at least left now. You know what I mean? But it's true what he says, because the pace of life, Joe, it's just that fast. It is. And as I said, I went to that unit thinking, wow, I've got experience. I'm already a sergeant. I've already gone to war. I've already done all this, that, and the other. No, you get there within 2 years or whatever, you've done more and beyond.
Yeah.
And you just don't stop. And there's no time for any bullshit. I don't want, but I'm telling you how it is. There's no time for any bullshit. So there's none of this saluting. There's none of this yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. There's none of this marching and even ironing your kit. There's none of that. You haven't got time for any of that because you're constantly operational. You're constantly doing it for real.
Yeah.
It's not practicing. You in between doing it for real, you practice. And then you're doing it for real. And there's just all that many different elements. And it's a rotation. You're just permanently out and about. And it's just, it's like I said, you've got no time for anything. It's, how can I say? It's informal. Everybody knows everyone within your group. Yeah. And it's first name terms. There's no badge or rank. Okay. They all know, we all sort of know each other. And because you're of that and highest caliber soldier standard, actually being a leader in the SAS is very easy. Okay. Because all your guys are at a really high skill level. You haven't got, whereas when you're back in the infantry, I found it harder being a leader back in my parent unit. Because you can be a sergeant there, and you've got all the welfare issues. You've got good guys but then you've got brand new guys who come in who haven't got a clue, and you've got guys who are having difficulty. Yeah.
So you've got to hold people's hand a bit more then.
You've got and not only hold the hand, sometimes you've got to micromanage. You've got to really, do, this is why they do in-room inspections and kit inspections, because some soldiers, they can't be trusted to take the right equipment, or it's all learning, I suppose, and other soldiers do. So you really have got to keep a top on of the soldiers more. Whereas in the SAS, being a leader there, it's totally different, because
everyone knows their job.
Yeah, it's just, delegate, they just get on with it, and leave them get on with it. This, you get on with it. You can, you know what I mean? It's amazing. None of this. So it's so much easier to be a leader in the SAS.
Yeah, okay. And so your roles in the SAS, so I think you said you went into Sabre Squadron?
Yeah.
What was that?
Right, a Sabre Squadron is basically these 4 operational squadrons. Okay. And they are the fighting elements. Because within the SAS regiment, I won't tell you exactly how many people, but there's very, very few people in there. It's such a small unit.
Serving at any one time.
And it's like in a normal infantry battalion, you've got companies, and they're the fighting companies. In an SAS unit, you've got your Sabre Squadrons, they're the fighting squadrons. They're the point of the spear, so to speak. and they are permanently moving, because within the SAS, you've also got guys who've been in the Sabre squad, and then you go out, you need a bit of a break after a couple of years. You need to recharge the batteries, so you'll still be SAS, but you'll be doing a different type of job. You might be training on explosives, or a liaison officer in a different country, or within our country. There's many jobs, but I can't really tell you about.
Yeah.
And there's different aspects of the SAS. But the actual pinpoint, the fighting soldiers, the fighting point is like the tip of it. And they're your Sabre squadrons.
Okay.
And out of 12 years, I actually spent 10 years of that in the Sabre squadron, which people could do 20 years in the SAS and they might not spend that much time. They might only spend 6 years in the Sabre squadron. You know, there's different roles.
Was that a choice?
That's like the meat of it is in the Sabre squadron.
And was that a choice for you to stay in there so long?
Yeah, I wanted to, and
you thought you were thriving.
I was thriving on it, and sometimes they make you go out to have a little break.
Yeah,
but that was me. I won't tell you exactly how the rotation works, but you just pin me on it. You know, part of it you might be in UK on the counter-terrorism type of thing. So all the black kit, what you might see on TV, whether the respirators and doing all that type of work, and just in case an incident happens in the UK that the police can't handle, you know, a train gets hijacked, an embassy gets hijacked, and there's many terrorists, or a plane gets hijacked, or a ship gets hijacked, and so on, and that's more like the SBS's role, but we'll be with them. So, you know, you've got that side of it, and then you've got all the other normal soldiering side of it, including going, you know, desert, jungle, European, Arctic, and then all the different skills. It's a non-step. It's a no rest environment. Yeah. Because, as I said, if you want operational, and that's number one, and sometimes most of the blokes are away on operations, you know, because there's that much going on. They just have maybe they can only keep a small amount. Yeah. They have to stay permanently in the UK. But apart from that, sometimes everybody's away. Yeah. And then, if not, you're training up for the next operation, or you're keeping your skills going. Mm-hmm. Stuff like leave is a privilege. Serious. And that's why, you know, it's very difficult, especially to keep marriages or leave within something like this, because you've got to be committed. You know, your job comes first, and I know it's selfish, but
has to be, right?
That is the mission, and your job comes before anything.
Yeah. Okay. So you're also a forward air controller in the SAS?
I've done many roles within the SAS, and obviously I can talk. It's forward air controlling they do it in the army as well. It's basically talking to planes and guiding planes, and you know, controlling planes, not just British pilots, NATO pilots, other pilots, and that's just part of an SS soldier is a jack of all trades, master of none. That's just you do many roles, countless roles. Mm-hmm. You know, from explosives to bodyguarding, high risk bodyguarding, and VIPs in civilian clothes, and obviously many secret missions. And unfortunately, you can't talk about these missions. I wish you could, but believe you me, there's a lot goes on around the world keeping the UK safe that what people don't realise. Yeah. And I'm always proud of that fact that I've been part of that, and it's the responsibility you get as an SAS soldier is at this level. It's strategic level. Mm-hmm. It's not tactical level. Yeah, you do tactical stuff where you're out on the ground, and I'm glad I did all this in the infantry. Yeah. And sometimes I used to feel sorry for infantry units. They are going out on, you'd see them in places like Iraq and Bosnia. They are just going out on the ground. They think they're doing a good job, which they are, but their job is just to basically patrol the area, make sure nothing happens. And sometimes they're going out there just to get boots on the ground. And unfortunately, then they're going out there and they're walking targets, you know, for IEDs and getting shot. And that's very, very stressful as a normal young soldier, because I've been there. You going out, and that's what can send people, you know, psychologically bother them later on, because even though they might have not been in action, it's just that wow, anytime something can happen now. Where I put my foot, that could be me. You know, people who it's happened to.
Yeah.
And they're constantly on the ground, normal soldiers are. Whereas SAS soldiers, not being funny or anything, you're too valuable. They've invested too much in it. It costs millions, for, you know, to train up a fully trained up SAS, and you never are fully trained. So you are used at such an high level, a strategic level. That doesn't say you don't go out on the ground with normal soldiers. You might do, but just for
With
see what's
purpose.
happening.
Yeah.
But you go with a purpose. You go on a task where you know it's going to, it's for a real reason, and you know it's going to go down because you're that high value. You can't just go out there for be part of. How can I say? Just ensuring that area is safe and patrolling, there's boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So that used to get me sometimes. You'd be in these bases with normal soldiers and you see them going out and you see the young lads, little 18-year-olds, and I'm like, well, I've been there.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're shitting themselves and you give them a smile, come on. And that is really, really difficult to see, but it was good that I'm so happy that I had the 12 years I'd experienced before, because as I said, I've been there. And then now I'm doing it, but more of a strategic level. And when I say strategic level, you know, the decisions you make could be literally world changing. And you've given that much responsibility. You're talking to generals, you're talking to really, that people are taking your word from what you say, little old me, on the ground of what's happening. And not only that, you're leading operations as well. And they're at a really high tempo and they're at this level. So, yeah, you get given a tremendous amount of responsibility.
And basically the common theme to everything you're doing is it's the most high risk, high challenge, high intensity work that the military does.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay.
And because we're only a small military, the entire British Army is small. You would, you know, our special forces is really unique, and it's tier 1 special forces, that is. You know, other countries have lots of special forces, but there's a big difference in tier 1 and tier 2.
Yeah.
Tier 1 special forces is like the SAS, the SBS, you know. Say in America, it's like your Delta Force, your SEAL Team 6, but then they have many other special forces groups.
Yeah.
Which specialise, say, into a certain area. They might specialise in jungle. They are fantastic in the jungle, but they don't know much about the Arctic because they have a different special forces group about the Arctic, or a different special forces group in the desert. Whereas the British SAS, we have to do everything. We do all environments, plus counter-terrorism, plus many other things.
Yeah. So you also mentioned something called the Special Wing. You did some work in the Special Wing.
Yeah. There's these special wings within the SAS, but unfortunately, I can't go into great detail about that.
Okay. There's
many wings within the SAS. As I said, you've got your Sabre squadrons, your fighting squadrons, and then you've got other specialist wings within the SAS. But due to the disclosure, and believe you me, disclosure will be looking at everything. And I'd like to tell my story, but obviously, I'm speaking now because I've come out. I've been, you know, I'm doing it for a reason, and I'm hoping to inspire people.
Yeah.
To go for their goals, but I will never ever give away operational information. What could put my friend's life in danger, my old comrades' lives in danger, or my old unit's life in danger. But all I want to do is tell my side of it, my story of it, without giving away too much delicate information. Yeah. But I think the information I can give away is how to go through adversity and how to get over hurdles. And that's not just getting over stuff like grief and combat hurdles and physical hurdles and psychological hurdles, but even financial hurdles. We all have them.
Yeah.
Medical hurdles. We've all had them. And it's part of life. And it's part of growing up, and it's part of the experience. That whatever life comes and it's at you, and that's what I say, it's like an hurdle. Everything's going all right. Suddenly, it doesn't matter who you are, everything's going all right, and suddenly, bang, something happens. Something happens to a member of your family. Yeah. Something happens financially. You're an entrepreneur or something like yourself, and then suddenly you make a wrong decision, and bang, everything goes to pot, and you lose everything, or you go through a divorce, and then you lose everything, and then you lose the kids, or so you go through emotional problems, and so on.
Yeah.
And whatever life throws at you, it's a case of getting on with it. And I do believe with being in something like the SAS, it's given me that, it's made me that more resilient.
Yeah.
Nothing bothers me now.
No
I'm
doubt.
like, I don't care if I'm talking to, I could talk to a prime minister or a general. I don't get fazed by him because years ago I used to.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who could speak very posh. I just speak as I speak. I won't try and put on a posh accent. I just speak as I do. So years ago, you listen to people, and because they're all suited and booted and they got a posh accent, you think they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But believe you me, I've met that many posh people, that many officers, not so much in the SAS and so on, who might have all the educational needs, might be academic, might be able to write a brilliant essay and do all the paperwork, but actual common sense, they haven't got any.
Yeah.
You know, where it's needed, they haven't got it. And I don't care who you are, you know, forget, I've had 40 years of experience, and that's either being in the military, being in the British Army, being in the Special Forces, training in small teams, or working in hostile environments with ex-SAS guys, or training Special Forces around the world. That's 40 years. That's a lot of experience. Yeah, a very long time. So I've got life experience, and all I want to do now is try and put some things, what I've been through, down on paper, and try and inspire other people so that they can see it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. So long as you're a good person and you take people as you find them, that doesn't matter what colour, what creed, what religion, so on. People are people. There's good and bad everywhere. And, you know, I've grown up in various situations, as I've told you, but I don't hold anything back against anyone.
Yeah.
Different times, different eras, you know what I mean? You go back 50 years or whatever, you know, I don't think women could even have the vote for about 100 years ago, and everybody was sexist 100 years ago. Everybody was sexist, everybody was racist, everybody was whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as life moves on, people change. Some things have not changed, have changed for the better, and some things, unfortunately, haven't.
Yeah. No, and you're definitely a very inspirational guy, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. So, yeah, I think from what we've said so far and what we're, you know, the rest of the conversation, I think there's going to be a lot of little gems that not only we can take in my profession and motorsport, but as we say, just in life and getting what you want to get done.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, I guess getting into elite teams, what are the qualities that you find within teams like that in terms of how they communicate, how they're resourced, the type of, you know, the way they prepare and the way they train? What are the main qualities which stand out in such high-performing environments, do you think?
Right, I'll tell you what the qualities are, and believe it or not, from David Stirling, our founding father, the person who created SAS, he actually said, this is our ethos, these 5 points.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's only really when I've left the SAS that I'm like, wow, that's how I've lived my life, to that ethos, and that's how every SAS soldier is. Because you know this ethos, but you never really, when I say know it, I only learned it once I got out properly. But then when you look at it, what it was, it's amazing. Because his ethos is, first of all, classlessness. Every SAS soldier, it's classlessness. What we mean by that is obviously, it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, what background you come from, whether you come from a council estate, whether you're middle class, whether, you know, what religion, what race, whatever.
Yeah.
It's classlessness. And if you think about this in the civilian, pretend you're working at McDonald's, it's the same. If you can work with somebody from wherever, you'll get on in life in whatever career. So classlessness, humility, you know, and that's a massive one. You've got to be humble. Nobody's yeah, we Special Forces, I admit, I'm proud. We are the elite. We're the best in the world, and I'm saying that. We are the best in the world. However, in my mind, nobody's special. What makes anybody special? What makes anybody better than me, or I'm better than them? No. You're an individual. You're a person. That's why I'll treat everybody with respect, but it's the same respect. I don't care what job he does. If he's working at McDonald's the lowest, I'm not slagging McDonald's, or if he could be the Prime Minister, I'd just speak to him the same. Who the hell are they? They're just a person. So that's humility.
Yeah.
Nobody's special. In fact, tell a lie, people who are special are people who looked after my mum when she was in a care home and they're getting paid pittance. Now, that's what I call special.
Yeah.
That's special. Nobody's special. We're all individuals. We're all just as good. Nobody's as good as. We're all just as good as each other. We've all got our own qualities. We've all got our own bad points and good points. So, yeah, classlessness, humility, integrity. Integrity is everything. Don't lie. I can never ever do with a lie that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I can look. That's why I don't mind doing these now. I'm here. Okay, now I'm back in this country because I couldn't talk before because obviously I was working in a foreign country training foreign special forces and doing other stuff. Whereas now I can talk and I'll tell the truth. Obviously, some things I can't say because of operational security, or I'll say them in a different environment because I could end up getting myself and my family in a lot of bother by people who would not like to hear what they would hear. But I can say it, and I can then look my peers in the face because they'll know, people who know me, what really went on, what I'm on about.
Yeah.
So integrity, so classlessness, humility, integrity. You've got to have a sense of humour as well. And again, this is all David Stearling's. You think of it, and if you've got that humility working in McDonald's, you've got integrity. You're not like you've got to be honest in any job.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you've got to have a sense of humour. And what I mean by this is not being a clown, but you've got to have a sense of humour in life. Life's full of shocks and everything's even when you think you're doing well and something's going to come and just hit you like a head first, you know what I mean? Whether you get, I don't know, you get an illness or something, you know what I mean? Or financial problems, emotional problems, your girlfriend's left you, whatever. There's always going to be problems.
Yeah.
And the person who can just laugh at yourself and have a sense of humour, and even in the darkest days, believe you me, in the most dangerous times I've been in, the most life-threatening occasions, you'd be surprised what a smile and a sense of humour thinking, oh, that's happened. How do we get out of that? You know what I mean? Or you've said something about somebody who's got... That sense of humour is a must. Yeah. And people have got it in the SAS. Maybe in different ways, but they've all got that sense of humour.
Yeah.
Okay? So classlessness, humility, a sense of humour, integrity. And then also, the final one is the pursuit of excellence. No matter what you can do, or you can do better next time. You can improve, whether that's a fitness, you're running, or you're playing rugby, or you can get that pass better. You can improve at anything. You can never sit back on your laurels. You can, if you're a road sweeper, let's sweep that road a bit faster. You get pride in your job and do it quicker. Before you know it, you'll get promoted and you'll move on and on and on. Mm-hmm. It's just having pride in whatever you do.
Yeah.
And always pursuing excellence. And I still try and do it now. If I wake up in the morning and say, right, I'm going to do this. You know what? I'll do it. I go mad sometimes. Oh, it's raining. What were you doing? What are you going out for? I'll come back like a drowned rat because I've said I'm going to go on a 10-mile run, even though I've had a good night out that night or whatever. I'll do it.
Yeah. No, all those qualities are really things that I would try and live by. It's interesting to hear them as part of like a written in stone, as part of your
ethos, and that's
yeah. But just going through life in general, those are things that I think everyone, whatever they're trying to do, everyone can be a better person, a better version of themselves by just adhering to those 5 simple rules. Yeah. So yeah, things aren't as complex as or sometimes we
overcomplicate things, yeah. So, and my process of then you hear about people, they do these talks and they come out with all this jargon and all about these quotes and all that. I love it's BS. I love it. It's just the basics, and that is an essay as well. You're doing the basics, right? Put things into bullet points.
Yeah.
A little mnemonic.
Yeah.
And you could say chips. That's where I remember the SAS ethos. Chips, classlessness, humility, integrity, pursuit of excellence, and a sense of humour. I made that up myself. You ain't told that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you go through life thinking of them and inspiring by them, doing that ethos, you can't go wrong. So that was a great ethos from David Sterling, now when he formed the SAS. Yeah. But everybody, believe you me, even within a small elite team of SAS guys, you aren't all best friends. You aren't friends. You don't go out together and just live in each other's pockets, and you're best of mates up when you're away from the SAS and all the rest of it. Some guys you wouldn't even have a drink with. You might not particularly like outside of when you're doing a job, but everybody wants you together and doing that job. That's it. You know that guy's going to have your back no matter what.
Yeah.
You know you can trust him on that task.
Yeah.
You've got to, because you're such a small team. You can't afford to carry a suitcase, an empty suitcase, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no dead weight.
It's too late. No dead weight. No.
Yeah.
Because straight away, as soon as you join the SAS, the faster bang, you could be straight on a job. For instance, when I first joined, within not long after joining, the very first, only time then I put my best uniform on. Next minute, I'm carrying somebody's coffee. And I found out this guy was on the selection before me, straight on the job, and he died in combat and on operations. So it just flashed the bang. You know what I mean? You haven't got time to train people up and so on, and carry, like I said, an empty suitcase.
Yeah.
You join, and even when you join, you're on a year's probation, because even though you've come from the army, and you might be experienced in such, you still don't know Special Forces tactics and their procedures, and even their communications. A lot of it's totally different. Well, I can't give away. Yeah. But the way they work. But before you know it, you blend into that and you adapt to that. And as I said, you're always working. You're always on operations. You're always operational. So you don't really have time. Sometimes you don't have time to stop and grieve because you can't. Yeah, you might not get back to your mate's funeral. Yeah, because he's died doing the job what he loved, what he wanted to do, and you know that. Obviously, he would like to live longer and being a grandfather, won't we all? But you don't know what's around the corner, do you? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if so you haven't got time to grieve. You haven't got time to think what you've been involved in. Some jobs I've been involved in, literally. It's flash to bang, it's over within about 50 hours, 60 hours, and you've been shopping, you've got the call, I've gone away, being on a mission where you've literally used lethal force, and you've had casualties, and it's been it could be life-changing if you weren't in the SAS. Yeah. And then you come back and you watch your match of the day, and bang, it happens again, and sometimes you go away for longer, and you're on certain tasks. Yeah. And it's not if you're doing one task a day, sometimes 2, 3, and you don't have time. You just go out and do your job. It's a job at the end of the day, and it's what you trained up for, and it's what you drilled into. And as I said, the leadership part of the SAS is so easy because everybody is at that such a high standard that it's just a case of delegate, right? Leave you this job, right, ready, okay, let's go. And you sort of read each other's thoughts half the time. And it doesn't matter if somebody just comes, it could be a new boy, everybody gets a say in it. Yeah. From the commanding officer down, he'll ask people's individual questions, because sometimes, and a lot of times, it's happened. I should have learned from this, or normal infantry sergeants and soldiers can learn from this, that newest boy, he could come straight from civilian street, not in the SAS, by the way, and if he comes up with an idea, listen to that guy's idea, because he might be the latest guru going in technology or something. He'll say something a bit outside the box, and you might think, instead of just brushing him away, you're like, wow, that idea could work. Yeah. And you'd be surprised, so everybody, especially in the SAS, gets a voice.
Do you think there's also an element of like you've got, I guess the SAS is you guys have Gurkhas and things like that in it too, right?
Yeah, these Gurkhas in the British Army, yeah.
But I guess what I'm getting at is you've got people from all different walks of life from all around the country, and that automatically means they have different life experiences and can draw from those experiences to develop ideas. So were there any situations where you felt that was quite a benefit to having, not everyone cut from the same cloth?
Yeah, precisely. And that's part of classlessness. That's part of Sterling's ethos.
Yeah.
Not only do you have people from all around the country within the SAS and different classes and different races and so on. You have from all around the world. People have come from other SAS units, attempted our selection and got in. People from the Commonwealth, you know, maybe from the GIRC and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a mix and match of everything.
Yeah, because motorsport is going through a bit of a transition at the moment. Because you know, like I said before, it's quite. Everyone's from the same background. Well, I can't say everyone, but traditionally everyone's from the same background and, you know, kind of same social class and things like that. And it's in a bit of a transition where it's kind of realising that there's benefit to having more women involved, benefit to having black people involved and, you know, just making an international effort. So, yeah, it's quite interesting what you were just saying about that.
Oh, yeah.
But touching on leadership again, what are the qualities of a good leader, would you say?
I'd say the qualities of a good leader is also sometimes keep this short and listen. You've got two of these, and it's listen to, like I said, listen to the newest person on the team.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't mean you've got to accept everything, but just listen to everyone.
Yeah.
And don't be scared. Ask for other people's opinion. I've seen bad leadership, especially not in the SAS, but in normal military, where suddenly you've got a young officer, and because he's finished Sandhurst, he doesn't listen to his NCOs, these people who've had 12 years of experience, life experience, and so on. You know, he thinks, no, I'm in charge now, and they soon fall. You know what I mean? So I'd say a good leader actually listens to his men.
Yeah,
obviously, is integral. And as you know, and he's got to get the men's respect, and you only get respect by experience, by people. You can't pay for respect. It doesn't matter what position you come from or where you come from. That doesn't get you respect. Respect is when your men know that you put them first, and also you are competent to lead them. You can do your job, and so that means, yeah, you might not be the fittest, but you'll damn push yourself and make sure. How can you try? I always say try and lead from the front. That's my ethos. I always try and push me. I've always led from the front. However, as a commander, you've also got to be prepared to step back, let your men do their tasks, and when it's going down, you are now in charge of other people's lives. You know.
Yeah.
So you've got to be prepared to say, right, it's happening. It's all chaos. Right. You now, how can I say it? You've come under fire. You've got down in the fire positions. Where's that fire coming on? You found where that position is. You start suppressing the enemy, and then you can hand over to one of your muckers. Right. Keep the fire going down. Keep the fire going down. And he will keep the rounds going down onto that position, controlling it, because you've not got much time. But you as a commander, then, even if it's only a few seconds, you've got to stop, take a couple of breaths, and you've got to look what's going on in front of you. Right. You can't just go in head first. You've got to see, right, what is this? What's happening? Is it a come on? Is it like a ploy to get us in there? And you've got to stop and have a look and think, right, what's the ground? What's the situation? Can I go left? Can I go right? Can I go straight forward? Can I move back? Because you've not got much time to do this, because obviously the time you're in there, you're in a killing zone. You've got to extract, you've got to move away. But also, you've got to decide which way you go and how you're going to move out the situation and so on. And you've got to do quick battle orders. You've got to be really quick, but you've got to stop. And what might seem like a long time, just a few seconds or a minute, get the situation and then, right, this is what's happening. And all the chaos, right, now this is what we're going to be doing. And a quick set of orders, a quick brief, and away you do it, whether that's move left, right, and back or forward or so on. But the idea is you've got to be able to delegate, hand over a quick command so you can then concentrate on, right, what am I going to do, make a quick plan. And then you can't do that if you're just busy just shooting and just move. You've got to stop. Okay. Maybe get them binoculars out or whatever. You've got to stop and think, right, what's going on here? What do I do? Okay. That comes with experience,
How doing that when your life is in danger, like imminent danger, taking time, it's kind of, it must feel counterintuitive, no? Because sometimes your reflex is, all right, I need to get out.
Yeah.
But stopping that fear controlling you and finding space within yourself to observe and figure out what's going on and how best to move forward, that seems like it'd be quite challenging.
Of course it is, but you have initial drills, what you've always trained up for. If something happens and there's a kill zone, you've got to, don't take the brain of an archbishop. You can't stay there immediately and face the rounds. It doesn't matter who you are. You've got to extract and move quickly with some left, right, and right. But what you can't do is all run around like headless chickens. You'll have some sort of quick drill where you just maneuver to a certain point, and then you're still in that area. But then you've got to make right now. What's the right decision? And it's just them split seconds. As you as a commander, you have to make, because your time's not on your side. You're giving this time for the enemy get the initiative. That's one. Your time, you're losing ammunition. That's two. And especially, not so much in the special forces, but when you're in the infantry unit, if a young soldier's got time to think in a fire position, that's when he starts getting scared and think, I ain't moving from here. I'm in a good position. I ain't going anywhere. And that's when he's got the time to think and fear. Whereas if he hasn't got the time to think, it's all a drill still. He's still listening to, and when you shout to that guy move, he'll just move. It doesn't matter. He hasn't got time to think. If I move across here now, I've got a good chance of getting shot. He hasn't got time. It's just a drill. If you leave that young soldier too long in that position, apart from running out of ammunition and being in a dangerous situation, he's got time to think, or he might be in that little cubbyhole where he thinks, I ain't moving from this. But he needs to, because he needs to be part of that team, and you need to keep the momentum going. Whereas in special forces, you know the guys aren't going to be that scared, or they're going into the drill. But as a commander, the biggest thing is you've got to stop, take a breath. Nobody's in a rush to die. You know what I mean? And stop stop this running around like headless chickens. They don't. Just stop. What's going on? You've got to get your head above the parapet and have a look. And then think, right, decide, what am I going to do now? Am I going to call for fire? Am I moving left, right? Am I taking it on? Am I withdrawing? What am I going to do with this situation? And being in many situations like that, it gives you the experience.
And how do you find the best people for the best roles as a leader?
Right. Again, as a leader, you've got to be honest with yourself. It doesn't matter if you like the guy, you don't like. Well, it could be a mate or whatever. You've got to put the best person who's the best at that job, that particular job. For instance, even in the special forces, we're all good individuals. Some guys, I would say, might be better on a motorbike than me. I did my motorbike test and I passed it, but I'm rubbish on a motorbike. I'm off it more than I'm on it. You know what I mean? So you would put but the guys I was working with, some guys have been doing not motocross, on the bikes and doing all that sort of stuff. What's it called?
What, like
on the bikes.
I think that is motocross.
Is it motocross? Anyway,
like jumping and
all that. And they might have been BMX riders, and they are really good on a bike. You know what I mean? So, for instance, then he's quality. He can be the lead scout in this situation in the desert, going across on a bike, guiding us. But then when you go into somewhere like an Arctic situation, you've got somebody who's a better skier, and let's have him as the lead scout. Because he can pit the tracks, he's better at that. Then somebody who's better in the jungle environment. Believe you me, some people, even though we work in all extreme climates, I will tell you the truth, I hate the cold, I hate the Arctic.
You and me both.
I hate it. My nickname was 10 Socks, because I'd put everything on. I hate the cold with a vengeance. But I'd work in it, and I still do it. But, and give me the heat, and some people, they love the cold. They're happy working to an extreme cold environment. Some people, they can't stand working in the heat. In the jungles, you work in them, it's your job, or in the desert. And some people are better at that. So, you adapt. If it's a certain task in a certain area, you might take a certain people with you. We can all do it in together. But if it's only a small task, you might say, right, okay, these guys have just not long been to the jungle. They were quite recent in it. Even you might be a new boy, but because he's just had that recent experience, you might take him. Or he's the explosive expert. So we need this. We've all done explosives, we've all done medical, but if he's up to date, right, I'm having them on this task and so on. And it's, that's what it is. Everybody wants to be on an operation. Everybody wants to be the number one through the door or do the task. But you can't all be that,
Yeah, so it's about understanding your team, understanding their strengths and weaknesses, and putting your ego aside to get the job done.
Of course, and that's what should happen more in football, I think. You know what I mean? And you find the good managements and the good teams. Sometimes, I'm myself a Stoke City supporter, and years ago, we was just known as, like, when we first moved up to the Premiership, if we would have tried to play fancy football straight away, we would have went straight back down. But we survived for a decade in the Premiership because we had Tony Pulis, and he played to our strengths, which was long ball and quite physical and so on. And then eventually we started getting the money, and we started bringing in great players, fancy players. And it was good football for a bit. But then after a bit, it went to pot because you had too many egos in there, and maybe not the management to control them egos.
Right. Okay, interesting. So you've obviously seen bad leadership in that environment. And is it as simple as saying the bad leaders don't do any of that, those five don't abide by those? Yeah. Is it as simple as that?
Not in the SAS. There's very I'd be lying if I not said I've seen some bad leadership within the Special Forces.
Yeah.
I would be lying.
Yeah.
And I have. But it's very, very rare. Very rare. Whereas in the normal military, I've seen bad leadership. I've seen very poor leadership, and unfortunately, I've seen that leadership get people killed for bad decision-making, stupid decision-making. People think, not listening to what they should be doing, or not listening to the environment or the people who are around them,
Yeah.
I've seen bad leadership. And for instance, in the normal army, you've got that leader who's an officer in charge of our, say, company, and he's more interested in room inspections, and everything's got to be nice just in case the colonel comes around, and walking his dog and watching the PT and not getting involved. And then, as I said, we had that SAS officer come. And he was there. He was at the front. He was leading everything. And he just fought outside the box. He didn't care whether he was good at drill, whether the room inspection was, the rooms are brilliantly and smart. He just was more concerned that you could do the job on the ground. He was a fit, and he was enthusiastic where it counted on the ground. Yeah. Not a barrack room soldier, so to speak, where you get some guys who are more better off in the barracks, and especially some officers who were, let's say, they're warm weather, so they prefer to be in a nice, comfy office than out where it counts. And as I remember, this one leader, this major, who was on an exercise, and you have to pretend as if it's for real. This is in the normal army, and there's umpires around deciding what's going on and who gets killed. It's all mock exercises. I remember him getting on the road and walking us all down the road. And as a young guy, I'm thinking, we shouldn't be just walking down this road. This is stupid. And then we get ambushed, and this umpire says, okay, all you lot are killed. And this officer, no, I'm Major such and such. We are not dead. It was like pathetic. I'm looking at him. I'm like, God almighty, what is it? Then we have this SAS guy come, and it's totally different. He'd have you crawling for a kilometre across the fields and doing everything. Yeah. And the people who was unfit and the barrack room type of soldiers, they used to hate that. They'd soon be passed away. It was the soldiers who were there, the fit guys, the ones who wanted the outside world, not the easy life, so to speak.
Yeah.
What he valued.
Okay.
Which is great.
Yeah. So once you're into the SAS and established in the SAS, there's an element of constant learning and improvement, accountability in terms of realizing what you need to work on, what mistakes you might have made, and being open and honest with your teammates and yourself. Is that fair to say?
Oh, of course. You've got to be. Within the SAS, what we do, it doesn't matter It can be a live operation. It can be an exercise. Once we finish, we always have what's known as or an after-action review.
Like a debrief.
A debrief.
Yeah.
And we go into detail. We never pat each other. If things go perfect, but nothing goes perfect in life.
Right.
You know, you can always improve. And we'll always, how could we have done that better? What could we have changed?
Yeah.
And this is on exercise. And when, as I say, our exercises, we play it as if for real, sometimes too real, unfortunately. But everything is as close to the real life as you can. You can get. So once you've done something, we'll then get everybody in and just say, right, what was the good points? What were the bad points? How could we improve on this? And just everything, like small things. And it's not, when I say small things, I remember being in an Arctic environment. You practice everything as if it's for real. And then we needed ammunition. We needed extra ammunition come in. And by rights, the ammunition is supposed to be a certain type. Well, it was the right type, but it's supposed to be pre-ready in speed loaders. So you'd have blocks of like 10 rounds in this clip.
Yeah.
And then you just put a loader on top of your magazine. And even with Arctic mittens, you just push down on your thumb and it pushes them in. And again, these speed loaders, so you can just put all these rounds in like so.
Yeah.
However, the ammunition came to us and it was the right type, but it was boxed. It was individual rounds.
Okay.
And no kidding you couldn't put a round in with a pair of mittens on.
Yeah.
Like you can fire a weapon with mittens on because you take the trigger guard off.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can fire weapons with mittens on. And if the ammunition come correctly in these speed loaders, you could just load with your pushing down with your thumb.
Yeah.
But because they came in boxes, they were just individual bullets. So you had to empty them.
Yeah.
You have to take your mitten off just with a touch glove, and your hands, this is minus 20, 25, and with the chill factor, it's worse than that. And I could get about 1-2 rounds in, and then you're putting your hands underneath your armpits to try to get warm. So you couldn't take it ages to fill them. We just couldn't. So that way, the amount of fire was slowing down, and we would have been pinned down because we had enough ammunition, but we couldn't load it.
Yeah.
And that was a learning curve. It was like, wow, where did that go wrong? How did that go wrong?
Yeah.
Where we got the correct ammunition caliber, but it was boxed wrong. So that's a learning environment. And also, I've been in the hottest place of the world, one of the hottest places, and we were training as if it's for real. And it's so hot, and we're moving along the position. It's like 50 degrees. You've got your body armor on, all your equipment, and the most important thing is you run out of ammunition. You've got that much ammunition on you. So we had all this ammunition, pretending as if it's it's for real. We all had camel packs on with 2 litres, and we all had another litre of water. So that's like 3 litres. Yeah. But we had loads and loads and loads of ammunition because you want more ammunition to do this attack. Because usually you'll run out of ammunition first. That's it. However, because it was like 50 degrees and so hot, over a certain distance, so many attacks, we had lots of ammunition, but no water. Every man Jack had ran out of water. And it was like, as soon as you put that water to your mouth, you were sucking it up because your body needed it. Yeah. And it was like, God, and I'm speaking to me, have you got any water? And nobody had water. So even though this area we was going to attack was so far, we couldn't get to the end. We had lots and lots of ammunition, but between every one of us, we ran out of water and we just couldn't go on. Yeah. Whereas you've got an individual running around with an AK-47 and a water and just a couple of magazines. He could go on because he's nice and lightweight. Yeah. Whereas we've got body armor, we've got helmets, we've got all this, lots and lots of ammunition. Yeah. And if anything, I remember watching people move, and we're all fit guys, and they're moving as if you're under live fire. Obviously, this was an exercise, but watching people and they're going so slow, I'm like, God Almighty, they're just easy targets. And then when I get up, I think I'm moving fast, but my friends say, no, you were usually you were going slow because your body is just shutting down. Yeah. And we had to stop and call it off so far through because we couldn't go. We're going to have that many heat illness casualties. Yeah. And it just shows you. Then it wasn't a case of one of the only times where usually you run out of ammunition first, or you've got to control your ammunition. No, water is more important this time. So if we was going to that situation again,
Yeah.
I'd have to sacrifice a certain amount of ammunition to have water because we wouldn't be able to get on the objective.
Got you. Yeah.
So you see, it's learning curves in all environments and all drills you do. So that's why you never stop learning. You never stop adapting.
Mm-hmm.
And look at modern warfare now. It's all drones and everything. It's technology has taken over. And believe you me, you've got to be a thinking soldier as well. It's not, how can I say? Technology now is massive in all walks of life.
Yeah.
And then in the military especially.
Yeah.
And that's why the special forces, it's so important to keep up with the technology because it's just a small unit and you have technology on your side as well. You use that, you enhance it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the likes of drones, dogs and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess there's so you capture things like that in the debriefs, like what you're saying about the water. And then there's got to be a mechanism for distributing that information and lessons learned throughout all of, not just in your unit or I don't know what the terminology is, but to the wider community.
Oh, yeah. We have, it'll get spread around to the different groups of what's happened. And then we'll also try and, where possible, have a continuity. So if you're taking over for somebody, you'll take over from a group and they'll leave so many people there to do an handover and they'll pass on all this information. Yeah. And then you'll take over whatever you're doing. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So you keep a bit of continuity. Yeah.
Okay. So here's something I've always wondered as well. And what you're talking about fitness and you're all fit guys. How important is like having a 6-minute mile, for example? Because I've heard, just I'm into fitness and having a 6-minute mile, that's pretty good. How important and how regularly do you come into situations where your fitness can get you out of a sticky situation?
Right. The differences in special forces, it's not the fastest, it's not the strongest, it's not who's got the correct technique and so on. You know what I mean? It's the person who's going to be there on the day and keep going. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to speed kings like you Usain Bolt or anything there. We want somebody who's going to keep going. So 6-minute mile, I don't know, some people, but we're talking about guys in the late 40s or whatever, and they're still doing it. And it's not so much speed kings. Yeah. It's people who can carry a lot of equipment and keep going, and they are still there. It's not so much just speed. It's more of just making sure you're still there, no matter what.
And that's a lot about mindset, right?
Mindset. It's mental mindset.
Being able to push yourself.
Yeah, I'm a big believer, especially when you're young. Your mind goes before your body. Yeah. Yeah. Unless you've got a proper injury, and believe you me, during selection, everybody's got injury. You've got toenails hanging off, you've got strains, sprains, you name it. Everybody's got them niggle injuries, and you've got back injury. And it's keeping going. It's keeping going for the injuries. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I had the mindset and attitude that unless I get pulled off, I'll never ever volunteer to come off. Mm-hmm. Unless I'll crawl through it, and basically, then they'd have to pull me off it. You know what I mean? I'd have to be that's how injured I'd have to be. Yeah. But your mind goes before your body. Some people, when it's that hard, they think, right, I can't breathe, I've had enough, and then they give in. So why, if you're not injured, you can keep going. Just put one foot in front of the other and do it quickly. That's all I say. I don't look up at that mountain. I just look at my feet and keep going, and like a mountain going, and so on. You can get by. Your mind takes it. It's the people who can think, oh, fuck, I can't do that. Yeah. No. Maybe when you're older, your body goes before your mind, because in my mind, I still want to do everything, and suddenly I get that creak in my bone. I'm like, oh, shit. Or I do it, and then the next day I can't get out of bed. But how can I say, now I'm older, I love training. I train every day. But I sort of train wisely now, you know what I mean? I'll still push myself, but I know and I'll still compete, but I know I've got certain injuries where why should I have to push myself just because I'm trying to keep up with this guy or trying to lift this heavy weight or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not trying. I didn't need to be a bodybuilder or anything now, or push really heavy weights because I know it's going into me. But you know, I've gone through a time where I was doing all this weight type of stuff and everything. But there's no need to it. I just long as I keep myself fit, I know what my standards are, and I keep to them standards, and I won't let it go. For instance, I like going out. I enjoy it. I believe, and I've always had the philosophy of and mentality of work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
And it might be bad. It's a bad thing to say, but I do like to have a beer. Yeah. Well, that'll never. If I've never affect my fitness. If I go out and have a beer or a few beers, next day I'll still get up. I won't. No hangover ever bothering me. I'm up and out and at 'em. And if it did, then I wouldn't drink. Yeah. And so on.
Yeah.
And it's having that. It's just that mindset. And a lot of people's minds, as I say, do go. And I've seen, and especially people from different nationalities. I've trained that many different special forces and different nationalities. And believe you me, they haven't got a mindset of a British soldier. Or, I don't know, some people, as soon as they hit that, oh, shit, I'm sweating too much now. Oh, I'm feeling like I can't breathe. They think they can't keep going where they can because the mind's gone.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's all interesting stuff. I was interested in talking about some of your like lived experiences in these stressful environments, like so combat situations where it's very high stress, high pressure, and I'm wondering if you'd be able to just talk me through a couple of them. What happened, how you handled it, and how you came out on top.
Yeah, looking back, I've had many times where you think to yourself, shit, how did we get out of that? Yeah. What went on there? Yeah. But then you haven't got the time to think about it, and then you're on another job and so on. Or why didn't I not get? How come I didn't get shot? Or my mate did? Or how come I looked down the barrel of that weapon and got away with it, and I should have fired a shot then? Yeah. And so on. I've had that many. I've actually had lived the experience where it's like, God, if that round or if that shell was a couple more meters this way, then it would have got all of us. Or, for instance, how can I say without giving away too much information? I've been on full on combat on numerous occasions, but very few people have actually been on hands-on combat, which is where you go through you basically out of your senses, apart from tasting the person. I've gone through every sense, where you've looked the person in the eye, you've fought with the person, you've used your weapon as a modern day club, you've smelt the sweat, and you've smelt it's gun oil, the smell of carbine when you fired a weapon. So that sense of smell and sweat and blood in a war is something what will never leave you. And you've heard the last breath of the person. You've seen the life go out the person. So that's the sense of touch, sight, hearing. Everything apart from taste. And when you've been up that close and personal, something like that, that stays with you for a lot longer. Certain smells and senses will sometimes daily basis, you'll have a little flashback because it's something. It's not like being far away. And when I say this now, modern warfare, people can be thousands of miles away dropping drones. You can be an air controller and dropping bombs. You can be fighting enemy combatants, which I have done, and from a distance, firing weapons, and then you've seen the actions of what you've done. Yeah. But it's still been from a distance, or it's been of a night time looking through a night scope, where it doesn't seem real. Yeah, when you get under to targets are real, or you've been through an house clearing drill and it's real. But actually hands-on and physical touch, and as I said, like using your weapon like a club, doing everything that you possibly could to try and take somebody alive, but then there's no other way. Very few people have had that hands-on, which to me that's what's been about my. That's something it's a bit different. You know what I mean? There've been in many situations, many life-threatening situations and scenarios, but that is something which is
more vivid.
It's more vivid, yeah. It is vivid, yeah. And at the time, you don't, just carry on. But later on in life, stuff like that comes back. But the thing is, I have a clear conscience because anything I've ever done is I've been against enemy combatants, war criminals, terrorists, or insurgents. So I've got no regret. Everything I've done, and never ever, well, it's like, civilian casualties, never. I'm not, there's civilian casualties, and things do happen in war. But I can honestly say I've never, and the only people that I have any respect for or feelings for are the enemy combatants, because some of them enemy combatants, they just put in that situation.
Yeah.
But they're there, but they try and take your life, but they might not want to be there. But you haven't got, you're just doing your job. But the likes of terrorists, war criminals, and insurgents, these are bullies. These are scum. These are people who like to cut people's heads off and be videoed and doing whatever. But when they are caught, believe you me, are they cowards? Yeah. You see what really is in them people. They're scumbags.
Yeah.
And when you watch when you see them and you see them defecate themselves, I mean, literally shit and piss themselves because they're that scared. And yet these are the ones who are doing all these atrocities. And yes, you get information out of them, and then they go into prison and they do life. And before you know it, they're getting lawyers and everything on the case, and they're having quite a life of luxury. And then they're giving it the big one. But when they get caught, you see the real person. You know what I mean? And that's what's wrong with the world sometimes. People, they don't realise that evil does exist. Yes, I'm into rehabilitation, but some people can't be rehabilitated. Serious. I don't mean about young kids who've been turned by propaganda, by what they've seen on the internet. I'm on about these generally evil people out there. And they'd be psychopaths. They want to, they get off on in seeing what they can do to individuals.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some people don't believe that this exists. They live in this cloud cuckoo land. They might have never seen anything from ground level.
Yeah.
But I've seen the best in humanity, but I've also seen the worst in humanity. And believe you me, there's some generally evil people there, and they shouldn't be on this planet.
Yeah, we're growing up in somewhere like England, like we're so far insulated from that real, that level of person.
Yeah, of course. And then you've got the best in humanity. I've seen, you've been there, and people haven't got anything. They've got, literally, when they say living in the mud, they've been out there, they've jammed the weed or whatever. They've been terrorised, and they've been out there, and they're living in nothing. I mean, literally nothing. They haven't got anything. You see them, and they'll offer you some of their food. They'll offer you some of their water, and they've got a smile on their face, and the kids are still smiling and laughing, and whatever, and they've still got that, that gives you empathy. And the massive thing about the special forces, that all the myths about the killers and they love doing it. No, it's bollocks. No, nobody go in the special forces. Nobody go in the military. You aren't in the special forces because you want to kill people. If you want to kill somebody, I'll tell you where you should be. You should be either be in a prison or some psychopathic, mental hospital.
Yeah.
Well, you should know. There's no room for that. Nobody wants to go out and kill people. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to save people. And the special forces are doing something what, unfortunately, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. And everybody would love to live in this lovely, fluffy life, this life full of cotton wool, where everybody's good to everybody and everybody gets on. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's some genuinely evil people out there.
Yeah.
And it's somebody who has to go above the parapet and protect our country and our way of life and our values, and do it the right way. And what I mean by this is, with SAS, we are still ruled by the law. Okay.
Yeah.
So, under no circumstances is there any unjust killings. Accidents happen, that's but no, all this assassins and all this. No, it's none of this.
Yeah.
And another myth is like, you know, SAS, they're all built like this. Yeah, you've got some big blokes and everything, but generally, they're just normal. No, they're just normal people. Normal, so they've got families, they've got lives and everything. They just,
just quite unique qualities.
You've got qualities what you don't know about, and it's been brought out. A lot of it's been brought out through the selection process, and they find these qualities, and you announce them, and away you go.
Yeah. Okay. So just finishing up, I've just got some, I guess, lighter questions to finish up.
That's been quite heavy on its words.
No, and I've really enjoyed it. And maybe in the future it'll be great to do a part 2 of this, but because there's still so much more I'd like to cover. What elements of your time in the SAS do you take and apply to your day-to-day?
Well, day-to-day, I always apply the ethos. That classlessness, humility, integrity, pursuit of excellence, and sense of humour. And that's it. That gives me a positive attitude. I always apply that without meaning to. It's just part of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some underrated tools that maybe used in the military that you think you couldn't do without in your day-to-day?
I'd say my compass.
Yeah.
You know, I don't carry around the compass now around the streets. But if ever I go out on a hiking or anything like this, I don't rely on this, on the phone or even the GPS. I like to have a compass.
Yeah.
You know, always know it. You can't go wrong in this day and age. There's too many people, especially even special forces, not the British special forces, who don't go back to the basics. Some special forces, they rely too much on technology, like GPS.
Yeah.
And what happens when them batteries run out, that goes down? They don't really know the basics of map reading, a compass. You can't go wrong with a compass.
Yeah.
Get you from A to B. And if you know how to map read or navigate from the stars or whatever, you can't go wrong with a compass.
Okay. Next question. If you could sit down with any historical figure, who would it be?
Right, this will shock you. Adolf Hitler. And the reason being, I just like to get in his mindset, you know.
Yeah.
And my wife, she goes to me, you've got an obsession with Adolf Hitler, because I watch everything. I've watched the old movies and what got me is what made this guy to turn against an entire race, want to eliminate entire people. And it wasn't just the Jews he wanted to eliminate. We wouldn't have been around much longer, you know what I mean, or would have been slaves. But it was also gypsies and people with learning difficulties. And then what got people to follow that into that mentality?
Yeah.
And if you think people like him, in that day and age, there was propaganda, there was movies and so on, but with the amount of technology and social media, imagine somebody like that in this day and age getting old. And it's not too far. It doesn't take long to turn a society, to get a follower. And before you know it, society can... and I've seen it. I've seen how people turn against neighbours quickly. And then tit for tat goes on. And there's always a scapegoats.
Yeah.
And that would be the person. I don't think he'd like me be at his dinner table or whatever. And apart from that, Muhammad Ali, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want to be remembered for?
Remembered for? Just a good person.
Yeah.
A genuine person.
Yeah.
A person with integrity, which I am. You know? And I'm like just everybody else. You want the best for your family. Yeah. And me personally, so long as... I just want to be able to live a comfortable life. There shouldn't be anything in this world like a billionaire. Who needs a billion? Come off it.
Yeah.
I'd like it, but I would distribute it, believe you me.
Yeah.
You know, just as long as you've got your general health, then you can't take that, and comfortable get with life.
Yeah.
And enjoy life and be positive.
Yeah, I think that's worthy. So I guess, just to wrap it up then, anything you'd like the viewers to know about what you're doing next, what you've got going on at the moment?
What I've got going on at the moment is I'm in the process of writing a book, because as I said, I've had 40 years of experience, military, special forces, or training special forces. And with all that, it's not just the military scenarios. I've had life experiences, financial problems, psychological problems, physical problems, and it's getting over all these hurdles, which you can do as long as you've got a positive attitude and so long as you've got the resilience. And we've got it. We've all got it. I just want to be able to let people know my story.
Yeah.
If it can inspire the odd person, then fair enough. And I've only found this out by being on social media. I'm not big in social media. I've kept quiet because I was working with the special forces over in the Middle East, and that's why I couldn't join any podcasts. But now I'm going to start doing them.
Yeah.
Because if you can help people in any way with what you've been through, then I think that's a good thing. And I know these people, especially ex-veterans, who've got in touch with me just by doing fitness or something on my social media, and they've enjoyed it, and they said it's inspired them. They've got them out and about. I'm thinking, wow, if you made one person get up and move or out their day, then that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, cool. And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, only social media I really do is Instagram.
Yeah.
That's at Melvyn Downes.
Yeah.
That's Melvyn. It's Melvyn with a Y and Downes with ES. So it's just at Melvyn Downes on social media.
Well, Melvyn, it's been a really interesting conversation. We've covered a lot, and I could definitely talk to you for another couple of hours easily. So maybe if you're open, we'll do a part 2 sometime in the future. But I really appreciate it. And I think there's a lot that we can learn in motorsport context, and just in terms of how to live our lives and be the high-performing people that we want to be. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us, mate.